Welcome back to Doors and Floors vlog, where we talk about DIYs, daily adventures, and life abroad here in Peru. Today's adventure, we are going to try to sew this dress, or this dress. It doesn't really matter, they both look to be pretty much the same. Different designer, different store, so pick your poison. But we're going to do a little bit of a tweak. I've seen this dress floating around the internet a whole bunch, so I thought I would try to see if I could recreate it. I have seen a pattern on Etsy that you probably could buy and do this a whole lot quicker, a whole lot simpler. Did I purchase it? No. I'm one of those people who, I like to torture myself. I like to think, oh, it's okay. I don't need to spend $8 on a pattern. I can figure it out myself. And I did. I did figure it out myself. Was it perfect and easy? Probably would have been easier to buy the pattern. But you know what? I still love the end result, so we're good. Anyways, we're gonna make a little bit of a tweak. I have found these pictures on Pinterest. I really like how they play with the stripes. The stripes is kind of my main inspiration here. I like how they take the two different shades or the two different colors of stripes and kind of make at the waist it disappear into one color and then everything fans out elsewhere. I really like that. I really like the playing around with different colors. So inspo is this dress with hints of this over here. I thrifted a bed sheet which has the two stripes, so felt very satisfied about that. Thrifted that down in Tacna, Peru. So that was for my part, and I thought I would take you through kind of the process, what needs to be done, and then a little bit of kind of my roller coaster of achieving this dress without a pattern, because it started off a little rocky. Well, let me rephrase that. It started off great, and then I realized that it wasn't great. So we had to undo and then we redid, but the end result was great. So let's talk about some important things to be aware of when you're sewing. On the reference photo, the reference dress, you will notice that there are, I believe it's 4 pleats in the front and 8 pleats in the back. The front has a button placket, so there's 4 on this side and 4 on this side, and then the back, they had like a center strip of fabric, and so 4 of the pleats go on one side and 4 on the other. Based off the way they're doing it, their pleats are just meant to look good. Like, they're not taking into account the stripes. I was taking into account the stripes, so that's kind of like the main difference that we had here. If you wanted to do it without having to worry about the stripes, this dress would be so much easier. Just make your pleats until it looks good, and you can figure out your pleat math. There's a bunch of videos on the internet. You definitely could do that. Basically, the gist of what you need, if you're gonna do the front and you're gonna do the back, is you need to make sure you take like a bodice block and then take your piece of fabric and then make your fabric fit to your bodice block, depending on how tight you want the dress to be. So whether you're doing the pleats with the stripes or you're doing the pleats without the stripes, the gist of it is it needs to fit into your bodice block plus seam allowance. On a very sky view, that's what you need to do. With that in mind, I went and figured out my pleat math. Grab your bodice block and then let's jump into it. Here is how I have started pinning for my dress. I took my bodice block and then I marked about how far down I want the pins to be placed. I want it to be under bust to most of the waist, just to come in here, and then it's gonna spread out there. But to get the width for my kind of fake pleating, it's not really pleating, but I'm basically skipping one row and pulling this one over to the next one. So I took a large piece of large width. Originally, I took the full width of my waist or high rib cage, and then I divided it by 2. And then I have half of that and half over here, and I marked it out, but it wasn't quite enough. So I've extended it a little bit further. I'm trying to get half only, but I need this half to be here. And then we'll do the half over here. It kind of fell off the table. After we have that figured out and pinned, that's when we'll cut our shapes into it. But I don't want to cut it until I figured out how much fabric I need. So I take this one here. And then I'm skipping that one, and it goes here. You just make sure the top edge pulls flat. And line it right up there. And I'm just pinning between this section. It's like 7.5 inches. I just need it to be between that because that's going to be the rib cage section. So again, it's like this, pinch and jump one. I have an update on the dress. The waist, I love the look of it. It's all sewn down, looks fabulous. The top, I hate it. It's too busty, and I have played with it several times for how I want to have it fan out. How do I want to cut it, and what do I want to do? Do I want to recut it and kind of cut off all the side, and it doesn't move as smoothly as I want it to? I really don't love it. I gotta think about it, but that's where we're at. She's cute in the waist. She's not cute anywhere else. And I sewed it and it's perfect. And you know, when things are perfect, of course, you gotta undo them. That's about typical for me. When I originally pleated it, I jumped over a whole stripe. And here I've just put them as close together as possible, which is taking out the extra. It's still baggy, but not like over the top like this section is over here, which is what I didn't like. And then I went through and I took my bodice block and I've taped some extra paper to it to get the shape of this sleeve because it needs to be cut as one piece, not with the shoulder seam here. And I've added a couple of notes. For example, for starters, I'm going to need to add a button placket, so a little extra length on this side, and then I'm going to add an actual button placket piece, which I'll need to cut as well. But I want to make sure I have extra seam allowance here. And then I'm going to need to make sure I have extra seam allowance here so I can fold up the end. I went ahead and measured from my shoulder about how long I want the sleeve to be, which is like 9 inches. And then I just need to make sure I cut with extra seam allowance there. And the whole dress is kind of big, oversized, so I'll probably cut everything around with at least a 1/2 inch of seam allowance around the whole thing. So I've pinned it to make sure that this works, to make sure that this looks okay. And I still have my center spot here. So my plan is I'll probably go through and kind of like sew this whole thing. And then I'm going to line this up with this first fold. But I will cut this one right here. So I have that whole extra seam allowance in the front. And it's all color matching because I want to keep that color matching. It's something I specifically want to do. Ouch. And then I'm able to cut it this way. I'm able to cut straight across to here and cut the sleeve. Oh, also one other note. I'm going to cut 2 of the same piece, 2 of these, and then I'll cut one in the back using my back bodice block piece. I just need to go ahead and add this matching sleeve setup, or maybe I will just cut the back piece, my piece, on folds, but raise the neckline a little bit because the neckline is supposed to be a little higher. But that's my plan, and then we can put it all together. I feel like we just did the hardest part of the sewing project, and all we did was cut out the fabric. That's it. That's literally it. But on an exciting note, I've finally cut out all the fabric to front pieces, and I have a back piece, and I have the waist part all sewn together. It would be less complicated if you copied the reference photo. That's ready. So I'm ready to start assembling. I have cut pockets to insert to the side. So we've got that ready. And I've also cut my button placket. What I have not cut, the only other thing that I think I need is the collar and the collar stand, and I haven't cut it yet because I want to make sure I kind of sew everything together and measure it first before I cut it. I have had a problem in the past several times where I cut the button placket and I sew it and it's gorgeous and it's perfect and it doesn't fit right. So I'm going to sew everything and then I'll cut it. I'll put a video down below of how you can make your own collar and collar stand. You just got to make sure that you measure the neck before, like the full neck before you do it. And then you'll have your pieces and you can cut it. I'm going to go ahead and start sewing the side and add the pockets and get all that situated and then get going. Overall, I don't think the next moving forward should be that difficult. This part wasn't really difficult either. It was just very time consuming trying to prep it and figure out the pleats and placement. So we're ready to get going. So I'm going to jump into that. I went ahead and trimmed my sleeves and then just created a double rolled hem on each of them. Love it. Love where it sits and everything now. And then I've also hemmed the bottom of mine, and I have the button placket in place. Basically, all we need to do is attach a collar and sew our buttons now. And this is where I'm a little stuck. I've kind of spent all last night and this morning trying to figure out how I want the neck to sit, and sewing and seam ripping and recutting and refixing my collar piece. The problem is, since we're not following a specific pattern, we're gonna have to like make sure the collar works according to how we want it to work and cut it accordingly. Even though I made my own pattern and it works, I just need to make sure that I get the neck. I basically need to make sure that the neck works with the collar. So I'm kind of like adjusting the two to fit each other instead of having something that's already tried and tested and we know works perfectly together. So we're doing the trying and the testing. That's what we're doing. So I wanted to say some important things about the dress. I really like how it looks. So even though I don't have a collar in place, it's looking good. It's very comfortable. I like that. But some important things, because we have the waist all sewn into these pleats that are gathered together, the neckline, obviously, if you leave it unpleated or unpinned together, the neckline can really open up into this really, really large thing, which can be kind of not cute. I did try it. I did try sewing it without pleating any of it, and it was way too big and didn't like. So seam ripped that, and now I'm trying again. I just spent the last 40 minutes trying to make sure it was the length that I wanted. I tried it on, I held it, I said how, wide do I want the collar to be and everything. So it's like super important is figure out how wide you want it to be. And I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and basically do the same thing that I did with the waist. Only I'm just going to sew a quick little top stitch. So all of these pieces have been brought over, so all the dark lines up and hides all the light colored. I'm going to leave everything else untouched. I'm just going to sew a little stitch basically along the whole neckline. After I get that, I'm going to measure it 3 more times just to make sure, because we don't want it to not be the right size. And then I can go ahead and cut my pieces. I'm going to use these pieces that I have made. It doesn't need to be this big. It can be smaller. This is just a template. So this is basically what I'm going to do. This will probably be what I use based off of seam allowance. That way it's a little smaller. when it's done, I don't need to add seam allowance to that because that's the template that I'm using. So basically, just make sure that you measure your neckline and then on fold, go ahead and make your pieces. And then we'll jump into making it. I just wanted to say that that was very, very important. And next is just sew the collar and we'll do the buttons. We're very close. We're so close.